Hi and welcome. Today we're going to have a look at if, elif and else conditional statements. So I'm going to start off with the first example. So number 1 is equal to 10. Okay. Number 2 is equal to 20. So here we go. So if number 1 is less than number 2, we have to do something. We have to print something. So print number 1 is less than number 2. Else, if that's not the case, we're going to have to print something else. Then number 2 is greater than number 1. Okay, so number 2 is greater than number 1. All we do now is just save this. So we're going to check if number 2 is less than, number 1 here is less than number 2 here. So let's just run the program, see if it works. Of course, here number 1 is less than number 2. Of course it is, because number 1 is 10 and number 2 is 20. Hello everybody, here's the second example. So we're going to use the number 1 and number 2 examples again. So number 1 is equal to 10 and number 2 is equal to 20. Okay, so the first evaluation we're going to do is if number 1 is greater than number 2, print something or do something. So we're going to print a message here to the user. So number 1 is greater. Number 1 is greater. So if it evaluates to greater, then if it evaluates to more, then it's greater. So number 1 is greater. And now we're going to use the elif statement. Else if it's short for. So elif number, let's say number 2 is equal to number 1, equal in value, which of course it's not. Then we're going to print off another message. So print, let's have a look, the values are equal. The values are equal. Okay, and finally we're going to use the else statement, and if those don't evaluate then it'll work its way down here and we can say number 2 is greater than number 1, which happens to be true. Okay, so we're just going to save that there and we're just going to try out and run the program, see what it evaluates to. Okay, so it's evaluated to number 2 is greater than number 1, which of course is number 2 is greater than number 1. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of shorthand here, so we're going to put number 1 is equal to 50. Number 2 is equal to, let's say 75. Okay, so this is the shorthand. Print greater than if number 1 is greater than number 2. Else, if it's not, print lesser than. Okay, so let's just save that, and let's just run the program. There we go, lesser than. So let's just pull this down here. So lesser than, so print greater than, oops, sorry, if number 1 is greater than number 2. So we know number 1 isn't greater than number 2. And because it's not greater, it's evaluated to lesser than, so it's printed out lesser than. Okay, we're going to do some evaluation here, and we're going to use the OR as well. So I'm just going to show you that now. So I'm going to put number 1 here is equal to 500. Number 2, or number 2 here, is equal to 1000. Okay, number 3 here is equal to let's say 2000. Okay, we're going to evaluate these, so I'm going to say if number 1 is greater than number 2 or num2, or num3, so we know that number 1 isn't greater than number 2, or number 3, let's say, is greater than number 1, which it sorry folks, which it is, do something. So we're evaluating those. One of these conditions is true, so it's going to have to return that to us. So one of these conditions is true. It's not the first one. Number 1 is not greater than number 2, but, or number 3 is greater than number 1. So number 3 is 2000, the value of, and number 1, the value of, is 500. So number 3 is greater than number 1, so that will evaluate to true. So we're going to print out the message, one of the values is true. Okay, so we're just going to save that, and we're going to run it, and let's see what the output is. Here we go. Okay, so there you go, look, one of the values is true. Yes, it's this value here, so one of the values is true. Goody-gadoo-gadum. Okay, let's go on to an example now. Okay folks, we're going to put the if and or statements in action here. We're going to try them out. We're going to type in, first of all, name equals Billy. Okay, name equals Billy, surname equals Bob. And we're going to do enter name, which is equal to input, and if you remember, the input basically takes the input from what the user types in. So first of all, we're going to put name, okay, and then we're going to do the surname. So enter, so we'll look here, surname. Enter surname is equal to input, and then we're going to say surname. Okay, so you will enter your surname in there. Okay, now we're going to start on the if conditional. So if enter name is equal to Billy, or enter surname is equal to Bob. So if the user enters just one of those, it'll evaluate to true. So let's have a look. Bob. Now we're going to print something. Print the user a message, which is going to be at least one name was correct. So they got one name correct, or maybe two. Okay, else, if they didn't get any names right, we're going to print them a message. And we're going to print, let's have a look, invalid names. Okay, so right, just save that and then we'll try out the program. So I'm going to hit run. Now just shrink it down a little bit so we can see what's going on. So I'm going to enter the name. So first of all, I'm just going to enter something like Billy. Okay. Surname, I'm going to enter the wrong surname, Billy Joe or something like that. So let's see, at least one of the names was correct. Yes, it was. The Billy was correct. Okay, let's run it again. I'll play it again, Sam. Okay, so I'm going to enter a name. Let's say if I enter Billy and Bob here. Okay, at least one of the names was correct. Well, we know that both of the names were correct. Okay, and I'm going to run this again. And I'm going to enter in wrong names. I'm going to enter Dave and Jones here. So there we go. Invalid names. So Bob's your uncle and Fanny is your auntie. And remember to give me a like and consider subscribing. It would help my channel out immensely. So I'm going to see you guys in another video. Bye-bye.